All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, Shipping Nation YouTube station? We're at a conference championship weekend, one of the best weekends of the year. Even if our own teams aren't in it here, Ham. Still fun weekend of football. We got two good games. It would have been a lot better, I think, with Bo Nix. Pretty tragic to see what happened to him. I was really looking forward to seeing him and Drake May duke it out. I still think the Broncos are pretty sneaky overall, just because I think everybody has sold on the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham taking over. I don't really know how good the Patriots are. I know they're good, but strength of schedule-wise, pretty weak. Obviously, the road so far in the playoffs, pretty weak in general, so that should be a fun one to kick off the weekend. And then we got the banger here that we're talking about tonight, the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams, round three, right? Round three is 1-1 in the regular season. One of those games, obviously, in a thriller. 38-37 in overtime there. And then the second one, right, was the stinker, right? Kind of the for the division, right, in week 16. I think it was 17-16, something like that. So both games really close spreads, really close games in general. Obviously tale of two opposites, right? One game went flying over the total, one game went well under the total. This game, the total sitting at 45.5, 2.5-point favorites are Seattle at home here. Ham, I'll bring you in, man. Last show of the year. It's been a fun ride. I know we've had our fair share of solo shows with just life kind of getting in the way of these shows, but feels good to be back in the saddle with you, breaking down for the last one of the year and for the conference championship here, the NFC championship game. So bring you in, man. Happy Sunday. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, happy Sunday. Looking forward to both of these games. I don't know much, Nades, but I do know one thing. Mike Vrabel in the playoffs always finds a way to choke. Did it with the Titans. He's going to do it again against the Patriots. If it wasn't for CJ Stroud, he'd be sitting at home. But, yeah, give me the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham taking over for Bo Picks. And then, yeah, looking forward to breaking this one down. The Trilogy, the third one, two great games so far this season. Now we get McVay going up against McDonald. Looking forward to breaking this one down. And yeah, it's been a great season, man. It's been a long season, a grinded out season. But yeah, we're here to talk about the best, second to best game of the year, conference championship.
Yeah, second to best. Obviously, Super Bowl, it will be fun in 2 weeks. Feels like eternity. I know they got the Pro Bowl stuff going on in there to give these guys a break, but should be a fun one. I think either way, whatever Super Bowl we get, I think it'll be decent. Probably rather have, personally, the Patriots make it to the Super Bowl than watch Jarrett Stidham play in the Super Bowl, but would be nice to see the Stidham take out the Patriots there when the whole world kind of selling on the Broncos there. So let's jump in. I got the dry run here up on the screen. Ran a dry run in terms of 150 teams, just with an average with our projections, or I used our projections, and then I used kind of just the flagship ownership that SaberSim has in here, just to get an idea of the large field contest right tonight. I think there's $200K up top in the $20, 10 or 15K up top in the $3.20 max. So some pretty good prize pools. And then obviously the two gamer has really, really big prize pools. Hoop and Tambo broke that showdown right here on this channel. If you want to check that out, when you're watching this, and get some last minute adjustments to your teams before that first game kicks off at, I believe, 2:00 Central Time, right? That first game kicks off. But with this game, you got Kenneth Walker, obviously with no Zach Charbonnet on the IR now. With that injury he saw last week, Kenneth Walker already had two really good games. I think 20+ in both appearances against these Rams in the first two times in week 11 and then in week 16. These two teams played. He is going to be the highest owned captain on the slate, at least projections wise. With that, was already pretty heavily involved in the offense in the postseason. I know some of those were kind of long receptions and things like that. People can say they're a little fluky there, but he has seemed to kind of pick it up a little bit and has had success here. So naturally, at his price of 14.4, when you got almost a $4,000 discount off of Puka Nacua up at the top, and even $2,000 discount off of JSN on the same team there. Kenneth Walker just allows you to get much better teams overall. That's why his ownership is going to be what it is up top. You got JSN and then Puka Nacua. Outside of those three, nobody's playing anybody really that matters in the captain from an ownership standpoint. Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, Parkinson are kind of going to, and guys like AJ Barner are probably going to get filtered in, just some of those cheaper guys after that. But from the captain position, Ham, what are you looking at here? What's your kind of angle? And definitely hit on how you're going to approach these top three guys in Kenneth Walker, JSN, and Puka, and then I'll break down my thoughts here as well.
Yeah, I'll kind of give you like you said, the three chalky guys, if you will, and then give you maybe some sleepers that you're playing if you're trying to beat 100,000 other folks. But yeah, Kenneth Walker's in a great spot, 14-4. No Charbonnet, as you alluded to. And if you look back at the other two games that they played against the Rams, both games he's had over 20+ points. We don't expect, what do you have, 3 touchdowns last week? Don't expect that, but the volume is just going to be there in the pass game, in the run game. So I think Kenneth Walker is going to be popular. Probably Nades, if you're doing that $200K up top. I mean, he might be wise, to be lower on him than maybe some of the other guys, just because, if you're going to have a dupe train running with Kenneth Walker, but he is in a great spot at 14-4. Puka would be my favorite Ram at 18,000. I mean, there's just, can't say enough things about him. The last game he played against this Seattle defense, all he did was go out and put up 50 points on DraftKings. So yeah, so Puka's in a great spot, those two. And then JSN's a distant third for me. I don't like JSN in the captain spot today, Nades. I think at 16.5, not going to pay that. So yeah, I'm fine with fading him in single entry or 3 max in the captain spot. So yeah, that's how I would rank it. Walker, Nacua, and then the Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then the quarterbacks, I think are in a great spot with these quarterbacks. Neither one of them run. Donald a little bit more than Stafford, but neither one of them run. So if you have the quarterbacks in the captain spot, I would have 2 pass catchers or 2+ pass catchers in the flex spot there with me. Some of the guys maybe off the board that I'm going to like would be Cooper Kupp, $6,600. Played 75% of the snaps last week, had 5 targets, Mr. Reliable. They like him around the goal line, so don't hate Cooper Kupp. And then the tight ends for the Rams. To me, I think a good way of beating this team is across the middle, is short passes. So Colby Parkinson at 5,100. Then if you wanted to get really off the board, former Oregon Duck great Terrence Ferguson, who had 5 targets last week and only, I think, 25+ snap share. But when he's on the field, they are going to be targeting him. I like those two of kind of off the board. If I had either one of those, if I had any one of those 3, Kupp, Parkinson, or Ferguson, I would definitely have their quarterback in the flex spot. But that'll kind of do it for me. I'm not doing anything crazy with the kickers or defenses. But yeah, interested to hear how you break it down.
Yeah, the main one we disagree on is JSN and Puka. I'm definitely going to be on JSN much more than Puka. The reason being is I just think if I'm going to outside of the big 3, my next favorite captain would be Matthew Stafford, just because I like his upside more. I think the Rams are probably going to have to, just with how good the Seattle defense has been and how bad the Rams running game has been in general, even with Corum and Kyron. I just think if the script keeps going on how Seattle defense has kind of had these other teams on the ropes so far throughout the playoffs, I just think Stafford has more viabilities just as well with all the pass catchers too. With the 3 tight ends, I assume they're going to go a lot more 12 and 13 personnel in this game, much more than we saw that they did against the Bears. I think earlier season matchups in week 11 and 16 would suggest the same, where Parkinson played 70% of the snaps in both of those games, 85 or 86% of the snaps in week 16 69% in week 11. But then you look at Davis Allen played 40%, Higbee played 40%, and then Terrace Ferguson also played 30% of the snaps. Same thing in week 16. Higbee was obviously out there, but Ferguson played 76%. Davis Allen played 65%, and then Parkinson played 86. So a ton of 13 personnel. I think they go back to a lot more 3 personnel or 3 tight end stuff as well on the Rams side of things, just with how good the Seattle defense has been. And I think this game play is very similar to the game in week 16, which basically decided the division between these two. So with that being said, having a lot more pass catchers that you can play in the flex, I think Stafford is probably my 4th favorite captain up top outside of the big 3. And then some sneakier guys. I think Devontae Adams is pretty sneaky just because he's a flop leg spot. He was very, very, I think he was the 2nd highest owned captain last week when I broke down the game against Chicago. He flat dudded out severely. I think he was like almost 20% owned. Now he's going to be 5% owned 1 week later in a game where I can see them having to pass a lot more. And if he gets those touchdowns at the end, when I'm naturally going to be lower on Puka at 18K just because of what the salary does, naturally I have to have some interest in 13.5 Devontae. And then the other kind of sneaky guy I would say is Rashid Shaheed. The reason being is he's just been heavily involved in this offense. Obviously, the Seattle went out and got him around the trade deadline from New Orleans, right, as a playmaker. He returned a kick to the house last week. He just has that playmaking ability, but not only that, just in the offense alone. I mean, he can take a slip screen to the house. He can obviously do the kick return stuff, and it gets you a different roster construction in the field. And he has the ability to actually scale in fantasy points with a ceiling up there. So if I'm going down cheap, I'm not going to go to one of the tight ends where the field probably is going to go first. I am going to go to a guy like Shaheed at 7,800 who does have a ceiling, can get there and kind of have a explosion approach. I don't really love Sam Darnold a ton up top. You could say he's playable. I think both quarterbacks, if I'm picking one, it's definitely more Stafford. I've just seen Sam Darnold be more a game manager type in the playoffs here, just kind of bend, not break. He does have 6 interceptions in both or in the 2 kind of past performances against the Rams. So 6 interceptions in 2 games. I don't know. A big stage. I don't know if Sam Darnold's really ready for the big lights in that. And not only that, he's just kind of been more of a game manager in the playoffs here. So if I'm doing something, I want them to I want the quarterback to have the opportunity to kind of sling it there. And Stafford, I think, has much more opportunity to do that. And not only that, I just think from a pass catching standpoint, JSN and really Shaheed is pretty much the offense. You can argue AJ Barner too, but the Rams have Puka, they have Devontae Adams, right? They have the wide receiver 3s and 4s and guys like Mumfield and then they got 3 tight ends, Parkinson, Higbee, all of that. So I think there's just a lot more opportunities for Stafford to spread it out than Sam Darnold overall. So for me, it's really JSN, Stafford, Kenneth Walker, Shaheed, and then Puka are kind of the 5 main guys that I'm looking at up there with a distant Devontae Adams as a leverage off of guys like Puka on the same team there. So I think we broke down the captains pretty good here, Ham. Let's jump over and talk flex. Obviously, you got the big guys up top, Puka and JSN. I know on the main slate, they're both going to be very popular. They're going to be very popular in this game as well. Those prices are pretty prohibitive. Overall, JSN is going to get played at a higher clip, just being $1,000 cheaper overall, and has a really good matchup. Wide receiver 1s and JSN himself have torched this Rams team in their last 2 times they played all season long, or all postseason, I should say. The wide receiver 1s have kind of gashed this this Rams defense up in general. So really good matchup for him. What's your thoughts on the flex play? Let's start with the quarterback position. Stafford at 10.4, and then you got Sam Darnold down at 9.4. That is a nice price point for Sam Darnold in the flex there. Cheaper than Kenneth Walker, which I think is pretty interesting overall. What do you see here from the quarterbacks in general?
I think both are viable in the flex for sure. I do like Stafford a little bit more, like you talk about. Darnold's kind of more that game manager. And then when we get into the defenses, I'll talk a little bit about the Rams. But we've all seen Sam Darnold in the playoffs get big old bug eyes and not play very well. And the last time he didn't play very well was against, you guessed it, this Los Angeles Rams defense. Now, granted, it was last year. It was against – he was on a different team. You know, all these things are different. But When the chips are down, Sam Darnold very well could not have his best game. So I'm going to go Matthew Stafford ahead of Sam Darnold. But if you're building teams where you think Sam Darnold can keep it competitive, you certainly want to. But I definitely have Stafford over Darnold, and I think most people will as well.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I do think it's probably going to be a lot closer than people think, just because of that price discount you do get on Sam Darnold. And I mean, they use Zach Charbonnet a ton in pass protection, and now they're without him, right? He's a big piece in that pass protection, and obviously they're Charles Cross, right? Their left tackle still dealing with some injuries, and he's not 100%. And then losing Zach Charbonnet, we're not going to know what this is going to look like from an offensive standpoint, and how much protection that Sam Darnold is actually going to have back there, right? He's already had 6 interceptions in the 2 games, like I talked about there. So could be a pretty interesting talk when we do get to the defenses there and talk about both defenses. Obviously, people are going to be wanting to, or at least interested in, the Seattle defense, just because it's been incredible all season long, including the postseason. But the Rams defense, no slouch. Takes us over to the running backs here. Kyron Williams, all the way up at 10K, is pretty insane price point. Nobody's going to click that name when they can click Kenneth Walker without Charbonnet at $9,600 for $400 cheaper. Charbonnet, or Kenneth Walker, excuse me, going to be the highest owned player on the slate in the captain, and one of them in the flex as well. You see, Dry Run gave me 58% of him in the flex and over 30% in the captain. So combined ownership pushing 90%. Just based on projection score alone. So naturally, Kyron Williams has to be a pretty interesting play. And he's right there within $600 of Sam Darnold in the flex. So you could definitely build a script where you play a Kyron Williams over a Sam Darnold in the flex to get different there. But he is definitely a leverage play. Corum does still eat into him. What's your take here on the running back? Because we do have 2 cheap guys in Holani and Oosts, however you pronounce Robbie. I'm just going to call him Robbie O. Right there, not Robbie the chosen one, right? We're going to call him Robbie O here, $200 running back. Not sure what the running back split's going to look like. Obviously, it's the first time. It's kind of the big unknown on the slate, outside of everyone thinking Kenneth Walker is just going to be kind of the bell call, which hasn't really been the case all season. So have to at least have some interest in some of these cheap guys in a Holani mainly. But what's your thought process here from the running back position?
Kenny G, Robbie O, and we just don't care. We'll throw it all out here on this show. But Robbie O, do me a favor, Nate. Click that little check box next to Robbie O. Get him out of the player pool. Do not play Robbie O tonight. He's a fullback that's going to go in there and crack some skulls in there against Landman and crew. But we're not playing Robbie O. But yeah, Kyron and Blake been splitting all season. Then we saw, to me, when the chips are down, McVay's going to have his dudes out there, right? He's going to have Kyron out there, which we saw that 2-to-1 snap count last week against Chicago. He's going to have him out there catching passes. If we could ever get Kyron catching passes, he would be a great play. He caught a touchdown pass last week. He did it a lot last year for whatever reason. They love playing some Blake Corum, but I love Kyron today, especially in the flex. Not so much Corum. And then, yeah, Kenneth Chalker. It's just tough to get away from him. He should have 20-plus opportunities. Some guy named George Halani is going to be backing him up. If you wanted to play Halani, I guess it's fine. At 2K, he doesn't have to do much, but like we always talk about, like even if he gets 8 points, even if he scores a touchdown, like is that going to be enough to get you there? I'm not sure. Like Tambo says, go bet his anytime touchdown if you're going to play George Halani. So for me, it's Kyron, it's Kenneth. And then I'm not playing any of these other 3. I don't think. I'm interested in your take, Nades. Could you play a Kyron and Corum together and Walker, or a Halani, Walker, and Williams, something like that? Or is it just max 2 for you of these running backs?
I don't really love the running backs, to be honest, outside of Kyron and Kenneth. I'm really not going to mess around with Corum. I do think it's a much different conversation. Corum last week in the show that I broke down in that divisional game was much different play because he was going to be super, super popular. That's not going to be the case here tonight because we do have guys like Holani who are $2,000 cheaper and some other value plays like the tight ends mainly, who people are going to click over a guy like Blake Corum. So it could be a spot, but at $4,000, I don't love it to be honest, overall. So for me, it's really the two guys at the top mainly. And I think Kyron's a really good leverage play overall. I just don't think people are going to click that name with Sam Darnold and Kenneth Walker, both cheaper than him. And what if this game does flip and Darnold is out there seeing ghost, and the Rams with Sean McVay, who are very well coached in their own right and have very good success and the playmakers to do so, to be able to come in here and beat Seattle at home, right? So I do think Kyron is a pretty good play in general. And all it does, again, if it's not Devontae Adams getting the 1 yard fade in the end zone, right? Kyron could be easily the guy to run it in and fall in the box, like they say, right? Twice. And if he does that, he could be captain optimal overall with a game where I think this game plays to the under in general there. So I naturally am going to have interest in both Walker and Kyron. I think Kyron's a really good leverage play in general. I don't really love the Corums, the Holanis, and I think Cam Akers got elevated the depth chart. If he's in there, I don't really want to mess with those guys, regardless of if it's the old revenge factor right there with Mr. Cam Akers, who's got passed around you can finish that sentence. I'm not going to do that here on the air, but let's jump over and talk wide receivers here. I do have some interesting takes from the wide receiver, just because I think guys like Mumfield, Whittington, and Xavier Smith are going to get eaten into a ton, just because I think the Rams are going to go much more into the 13 personnel stuff, which they've ran in both instances against Seattle, especially with just overall how good Seattle's defense has been. So I think these ancillary wide receivers like the Mumfields, the Whittingtons, the Xavier Smiths of the world are kind of 150 max sprinkles. Probably really don't want to get to them much in 20 max stuff. I'd rather take a shot on guys like Tyler Higbee at no ownership from the tight end position, when Parkinson and Terrence Ferguson are going to get played at a good chunk. So from the wide receiver position, Shaheed is a pretty interesting play, just because so many more people are going to click Cooper Kupp for $800 cheaper. I'll take the upside in a guy like Shaheed, especially in Darnold captain type builds. You can pair him if you want to play the Seattle defense as well, get the little double dip action. I think Shaheed is a really good play on this slate. He's getting sandwiched between a lot of that chalk of those tight ends, that tight end grouping, and the kickers there. I just think a lot more people click those guys over a guy like Shaheed, and we've seen what he can do, especially in the postseason. Was heavily involved and pretty much won that game for them last week overall. So what's your take here from the wide receivers?
Yeah, for me, similar to Robbie O and Kenny G, you can take Kanata Munfield down and just X them out. They're terrible plays. Play Terrence Ferguson if you're going to play somebody that inexpensive. And then Puka, JSN, and Kupp for me. I think Devontae, coming back from that hamstring, terrible play. I mean, you might luck box into 2-yard touchdown catches. And then Shaheed, I think we differ a little there. Shaheed just hasn't done much, in my opinion. Could he do it 100%? So he does have that upside, but I'm going Kupp. I'm going JSN, and Puka's my favorite three. And then I wouldn't play Munfield, Whittington, or Xavier Smith with your money. I think they're that bad of plays. So, yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Not much more to add. I do think if I picked one, Jordan Whittington would probably be the guy. I mean, he's going to be sub 10%. Doesn't take much to get overweight. Stafford type captain builds. I think he makes some sense, or as a value play to get off of the chalkier values like Kobe Parkinson overall, or AJ Barner. Even guys like Arroyo, I think are pretty interesting there. So for me, it's really JSN, Puka, Shaheed. I think Cooper Kupp is fine, but I think he feels like kind of the safe, gross kind of floor type play. And I'd rather just take an upside guy in Shaheed for the unknowns. Everyone sees kind of the snap counts and everything there, and just feels much safer to click Cooper Kupp. And I mean, that dude's 97 years old. So I'll take my chances with the guy that actually has explosiveness in Shaheed there. Let's jump over and talk the tight ends, which is definitely a big talking point on the slates because of roster construction wise. AJ Barner, Parkinson are both going to be very popular. And then Terrence Ferguson as well at just $1,800 allows a lot to fit in general. Ferguson was super involved last week. Both times these guys played, especially in week 16, he was heavily involved in the offense for the Rams here. He in terms of routes run in that game, he was second on the team behind Puka. Obviously, there was no Devontae Adams in that game, so now Devontae coming back. But again, they play different roles overall. Devontae lines up on the outside a lot. Ferguson not so much there. So I think Ferguson's still a really good play. Parkinson's obviously the chalk play. The guy that I think is interesting from the tight end room here is Tyler Higbee. The reason everyone's going to hate the click number one, and they're going to look at the snap counts, but it's a completely different scheme going in to face Seattle than it is to face Chicago's defense, who can't stop a nosebleed, where they can run more wide receiver stuff. They don't need the 13 personnel. I think they go much more into the 13 personnel, like I talked about, and play a lot more of these 3 tight end sets where these guys are on the field. And Higbee at $3,000, nobody's going to click that name. He gets downfield targets, got one against the Bears. He's led the team in 20-plus yard targets in the postseason alone. I think Higbee is a really, really, really sharp play in tournaments that nobody's going to click. Everyone's going to click Ferguson, Parkinson, and Barner over him. I think he's an interesting play at $3K there. But what do you see here from the tight end position?
Yeah, I love that call from you, Higbee. No one's going to play him. They had been playing 13 personnel or 3 tights quite a bit through the last, quarter of the season. They got away from that last week, as you alluded to. And McVay talked about how bad of a game plan he had for that offense. So I think they're going to go back to the roots, get in there, ground and pound, get those 3 tight ends on there. They love the play action. Excellent call by you with Higbee. To me, it's any of those 3 tight ends for the Rams. I'm okay with 2 of them, especially if you have if you had Stafford, for some reason you had Stafford up top, I'm okay with 2 of those. Stealing those touchdowns from Puka, stealing them from Devontae. And then Barner just hasn't gotten it done recently. Could he today? Absolutely. But I like these Rams tight ends, especially those the Higbee call by you, I think was phenomenal. And then, not playing any of those other guys down below Ferguson.
Yeah, just from a prop standpoint, I mean, Barner's sitting at 29.5 and Parkinson's at 26.5, which, yeah, those are the best on the slate from the tight end. But I mean, you look at Higbee and Ferguson, they're at 15.5, and Ferguson's got the exact same props like I talked about as Higbee, and over 3. I mean, he's going to probably be 3 times the ownership that Tyler Higbee is going to be at, and so that's just an easy flip there in tournaments for me. But I like all 4 of these tight ends at the top: Barner, Parkinson, Higbee, and Ferguson. It'd probably, if I had to pick my favorites, it'd probably be Higbee, Ferguson, and then the 2 guys at the top, just from an ownership standpoint and ceiling, right? I'm not trying to chase floor here. I'm trying to chase ceiling to get to the top of these tournaments. Obviously, they're very top heavy. There's going to be a lot of people playing because it's like I said, the second to last weekend of football in general. And yeah, I'll take a shot there. Not going to mess with Arroyo too much there, but if you wanted to, that'd be more if you wanted to go like a Sam Darnold type captain team or something like that. I don't really love it. He does have a prop 6.5. Obviously not great. That's all baked in there. But for me, it's really, I'd take more of a shot on the ancillary pieces from the Rams tight ends just because of the 13 personnel stuff. Let's talk kickers and defenses to round us out here, Ham. I know we previewed a little bit to the Rams defense there at 3,600, which, hey, surprise, surprise, is right in those range of all those tight ends who a lot more people are going to click. I mean, the Rams defense projected to be right around 15% owned. Same thing with the Seahawks, but the only difference is Seahawks are up at 4,600. That's in that same range of Cooper Kupp as well. So naturally, more people are going to click Cooper Kupp. In the Rams range, naturally, more people are going to click Parkinson's, the Barners of the world. I think that both the defenses are pretty interesting here. I already like the under in general. Seahawks defense has been really good. I think the Rams defense is definitely solid in general. It's still Sam Darnold at the helm. They have 6 turnovers against Darnold in the 2 games. Why can't that change here? What do you see here from the kickers and defenses?
Yeah, let's talk about the defenses first. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, the Rams, that inexpensive. I do like them. Don't love them by any stretch, but if you're building like a low scoring affair type thing with no Darnold in there, you think he gets some more picks. You talked about the 6 turnovers in 2 games. I think the Rams are the better defense in this particular game. The Seahawks defense is still lights out. So once again, if you're you're playing a lower scoring affair, the Seahawks are fine, but don't love them. You're kind of the kicking guru. I like Myers. I mean, nobody likes going inside the 20 and kicking a field goal on 4th and 2 than Mike McDonald. So yeah, give me some. Jason Myers. I think he's in a great spot. They love kicking field goals, and then the thicker kicker kicked the game winner last year. I don't know if he's missed all season long, Nate. He might have missed one field goal, I think, but he's been very solid since they picked him up. If you think it's a low scoring game, whatever it is, like 17 or even like 20-17 or something like that, and you think he gets 2 field goals and can be on the winner, I don't hate that. So I like both kickers. I would have Myers a little bit ahead of Mevis, and then I don't really love the defenses, but I would play the Rams if I was going to play one of them.
Yeah, no, I think when you're playing the defenses to tell a script, I think the Rams defense is a really, really good play in like a Kyron Williams type captain. Nobody's going to play Kyron up top. Nobody's going to play Kyron in general. So when you're doing it, why can't the Rams just control this game, right? It's still Sam Darnold, like I talked about at the helm. So I think the Kyron Williams with Rams defense in the flex is a really interesting point as well. Seahawks can help cut into that Kenneth Walker ownership as well, because at 4,600, again, people are going to go to that Cooper Kupp range in general for $200 cheaper. Well, go Kenneth Walker up top and not play Cooper Kupp, the safe kind of condom play in the flex. Play that Seattle defense who is priced up. And why can't Stafford make mistakes overall? So I think they're fine. I do prefer the Rams over the Seattle defense. And then I prefer Jason Myers as well over Harrison Mevis just for the salary discount. Or not the salary, the ownership discount, I should say. I think more people are going to click Hunter Mevis, Harrison Mevis, excuse me, butchering all these names here. But Mevis has been really, really good for the Rams. I mean, 9, 12, 14, 6, 15, 12, 9 are his last couple weeks, dating back to week 14 there. Obviously had 9 last week against Chicago, had 12 against the Panthers in the wild card round there. But Jason Myers had ceilings on the ceiling. I mean, yeah, the first match or the last matchup in week 16 against the Rams, where there was just a ton of points, 38-37. He didn't kick a lot, obviously, no surprise there. But in the first game when it was 21-19, which I think could be a similar type score to that we see here tonight, he had 15 points. So I think Jason Myers is a really, really good play. And you could definitely see Kenneth Walker busting one, or JSN hits like a deep slant, intermediate slant across the middle, and then them stall out, right? Darnold takes a sack, whatever, and here comes Jason Myers out and booting a 50-yarder. So I like both the kickers. Definitely prefer Myers over Mevis, and then I prefer the Rams defense over the Seahawks to kind of round us out here. That's going to do it. Ham, any closing remarks for the people before we get out of here?
Yeah, nothing. Hey, good luck today. 200K up top, so hopefully somebody wins it, but I think it should be a good game tonight in this contest.
Yeah, hopefully it's a good game here. Hopefully we get some nice football, and hopefully we see some shippers to round out the season again. On behalf of Ham and myself, we appreciate all the interaction all season long. We'll be back next season for sure. We'll be back with baseball right around the corner. I know some crazy stuff happening in the offseason here with the Dodgers and then everybody else in general. But we'll be back doing our baseball shows. Looking forward to baseball season. That'll be here before you know it, right? We're already almost into February here. Baseball is 2 months away, right around the corner. So looking forward to that. And then obviously PGA is going in full swing right now as well. And the team that we have over here absolutely crushes the PGA. Had a really good week 1, having a pretty solid week 2 already. So looking forward to that. But hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Enjoy this day of football. Thanks so much for watching all season long and supporting the channel right here. Drop that subscription if you haven't already. And down in the comments, any kind words, anything you like to say, let us know. Score predictions, whatever else, still holds, right? Ham, if they do get the score prediction correct, we will give them a free month over here at ShipItNation.com. But that's going to do it for Ham. I'm Nades. Good luck tonight in those contests. Hope to see the Ship It Nation logos at the top. We're out of here. Peace.